One time I'd promised my daughter that we would enter a daddy-daughter cake baking contest that our church was having. I was really busy at the time. I was a fourth year medical student, MD. I had about 40 hours of clinicals every week, plus I still had didactic bookwork. And I was the only source of income for the family. I had a chiropractic office, and luckily I could work at minimal hours and still make enough money to support the family. But I forgot about my promise, and the day came and my daughter's like, "Daddy, are you ready for the cake baking contest?" I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot. I just completely forgot. And so I took a brownie pan and I baked a white cake in it, and I cut a little man out that looked like this. And you're like, that's a horrible drawing. But it was a horrible cake man. But I cut him out of a cake. I made a cake in a pan and I cut this cake man out. And I put eyes on him like this and a mouth. And he looked like a character that was on Saturday Night Live 40 years ago called Mr. Bill. And he looked just like that. And I'm going to tell you how we won the honorable mention. So we go to the event and there's, 20 girls and their dads who have made cakes. And some of them are incredible. Like one was layered and it was like evolution with like dinosaurs here and all this stuff showing the evolution of man. Just really creative, really well done. There was one where the cake had broken when they took it out, and they made it into an earthquake, and they made it California having an earthquake because there was this crack in the cake and they took advantage of it. So, and we ended up getting a cooking spoon with these streamers on it that said honorable mention. So it's like we came in fourth place. We weren't first, we weren't second, we weren't third. So the contest had several stages. First was appearance. And everybody, every dad, every girl voted on the other person's cake. So we went around cake to cake, looking at them. We voted. People looked at ours. And they were really polite because it was an awful cake. It looked like we did it in a hurry, and we did. And they'd come by and they'd be like, "Oh, yeah, that's a nice cake. Good job. Good job, you guys." And then we had the tasting portion where everybody cut up their cake and everybody got to eat a piece. And we voted on the best tasting cake. Ours probably wasn't the best tasting, it wasn't the best looking, but there was something they did not expect. And that is, I cut a section out of the stomach like that. And I took the section, and when I brought it out, it looked like this. I pulled that out of his stomach, leaving it hollow. And then I cut the top portion like this and just took the top part. And then inside that hole, I put 2 large white marshmallows for like lungs. And I took a long licorice whip and I put it in there for the intestines. And I put a large candy on top of that under the lung on the right side to be the liver. And then I took cherry pie filling, watered it down a little with Karo syrup, and I poured that in the hole on top of everything. And then I took this cap and put it on top of those guts, and we covered it with icing so nobody knew that was in there. So it came time for us to cut the cake and everybody eat it. And my daughter and I walked up to the table and we'd practice this because I knew how to do a medical autopsy from being in medical school. So I put on rubber gloves and I'm like, knife. And she slaps a knife in my hand. And I took the little cake man and I made what's called a Y cut, which is what they do in an autopsy. I did an autopsy on the cake, and I made a Y cut, and when I did, red blood-like cherry filling comes flowing out, and the little girls are all like, ew, but they're excited. And so then we open the cake like we're doing an autopsy, and I pull out the lungs, and I'm like, who would like the lungs? And little girls are like, me. And then I pull out the intestines. I'm like, who wants his intestines? Who wants his guts? And someone's like, me. And I put it on their plate. Who wants the liver? And then we cut up the little man who we did an autopsy on and gave it. And we didn't win first or second. We didn't get best appearance. We didn't get best tasting, but we got most creative. And so we won an honorable mention. So my medical school did not go completely to waste.